Hi everyone. In the last video, we talked about how to allocate memory for structures, both statically and dynamically. Now we are moving on to something a bit more advanced, the struct array and the linked list. These two data containers are both based on structures, and they are super useful when you are working with collections of data. Okay, let's start by checking out this slide to understand the difference between them. When it comes to memory allocation, these two structures follow the same basic types, static and dynamic. A struct array is typically static, just like regular arrays, and a linked list is dynamically allocated, and it is built using pointers. In this image here, you can see that a struct array is one big block of memory. Every node is stored right next to the other, back to back in memory. But a linked list uses pointers to connect each node to the next, which means the nodes can live anywhere in memory. And in real-world projects, linked lists are way more commonly used than struct arrays. You will often see linked lists in lower-level systems built with C programming language. But in higher-level systems, object-oriented designs, people usually use built-in containers like stdlist, set, vector, or map, etc. So yeah, in C++, we mostly rely on the stdl containers, but in C, linked lists are still king. So if you are preparing for interviews or practicing on this code, understanding linked lists is super important. That said, they can be a bit tricky to learn at first. So in this video, we will start with struct arrays. They are easier to grasp before we tackle linked lists in the next video. Alright, let's try design a struct array. First, we define a simple struct called node. And to keep things simple, we will just give it one member, an integer called val. Okay? Then in our main function, we will declare an array of these structures. See that? Nothing fancy, just a struct array with 10 elements. And next, let's write a function to initialize our struct array. We call this function initialize. And it takes two parameters. The first one is a pointer to the struct array, and the second one is the size of the array. Here's how it looks. Okay, we are using a simple for loop to walk through the array. And since arrays are stored in a continuous block of memory, we can just access each element by index. And in this case, we are setting each val to its index. So the first one element's values is equals 0, and the next one is equals 1, and so on. Okay, let's go back to our main function and actually code this function. We will also print out each struct's value to make sure it works. Okay, a couple of things to point out here. We pass the address of the first element to the function, That's enough for the pointer to traverse the array. And the second one is to get the size of the array. We divide the total size by the size of one struct, which we've done before, so I won't go into it again. After running the loop, we print out the values and confirm the array has been initialized correctly. Okay, so in this video, we learned what a struct array is, and we saw how to define one, and we wrote a function to initialize it, and we print the values to confirm it all works. In the next video, we will dive into the more flexible and powerful linked list. It is a bit trickier, but definitely worth learning, especially if you are preparing for coding interviews. Alright, see you in the next video.